is a Touchstone Publishers presentation, your trusted source of leadership knowledge.
Witness the evolution of great leadership. Leaders have inspired many great accomplishments all over the world, and Daniel Pennington has been a part of this evolution. The skills and techniques used to create an extraordinary change on this planet will be shared by Daniel Pennington. Daniel Pennington is a speaking coach and a conference speaker who has worked with the best of the best. Daniel helps leaders connect with their teams and drive engagement. Join our Director of Operations Glenn Daniels and Daniel Pennington as we learn from Daniel Stork.
Well, good morning, everyone. Good afternoon, good evening. It doesn't matter where you are. Those of you know me, I always say good morning no matter what time of day it is. That's just the way it goes. So good morning, everyone. And welcome to our guest, Daniel Pennington. Daniel, welcome.
It's good to be here, Glenn. Thank you very much for having me on your show.
Well, I appreciate that. And I'm going to start off with one of my standard questions. I only have one or two or 15, but only one for today, I think.
Okay.
And this way gives us a chance to really get to know you. You got that introduction, but let's talk about this. What is your unique and powerful? Maybe people need to know, they don't know about you, your TEDx, or your organization company. What is it that they need to know that's unique and powerful? Okay.
All right. So let's start there. When I was in high school, we had superlatives. Now, I don't know if you had superlatives in your high school, but we had superlatives. And what that meant was, you have the most athletic and the best looking and all of those things. And I didn't get any of those. What I was voted for was I was voted the quietest. And now for somebody that's gone on to be a speaking coach, that's a pretty surprising thing. But during my junior year in high school, I didn't speak to anybody. I literally had such a problem with overarching shyness that I wasn't able to stand up in front of class. I wasn't able to certainly ask a girl out. I didn't have the ability to go and get a part-time job because, you'd have to walk in and say, Mr. Daniels, I'd love to have a job at your place. I didn't have that ability. And so I started from there. And because of that, I realized how much that life was passing me by. I mean, if you can't talk to people, you can't accomplish anything. So I began working then on trying to become less shy. You still with me, Glenn?
Yeah, you froze there for me. So you said you began working from there to be less shy.
Less shy. And that's and I just sort of overcompensated. I just kept at it until I was not just not shy anymore, but I was actually speaking in public.
That says a lot about your character. I mean, even though it started out not talking, for you to grow to become a speaking coach, a TEDx speaker, sharing your message, and then doing your main work, which is helping companies draw and keep great employees, it sounds like through authenticity. Yeah. How did you overcome that? What did you? That's
a great question. I just studied it. I mean, literally just studied it. And what I've discovered, Glenn, is that shyness is a habit. And if you don't talk this week to anybody, next week you're probably not going to be able to talk to anybody. And over time, you learn to be shy the same way that you learn to run a marathon or anything else. You do it at a little bit at a time. And we had moved a great deal. My family, very poor. We would get kicked out of our house and we'd have to move. And I had been, I think, to 8 schools by the time I got into high school. And I was just not comfortable. I wasn't comfortable with myself. And I said, I'm just not going to talk to anybody. And I stopped doing that. And when you stop doing that, then it becomes harder every single time. So the corollary, the flip on that is I would just force myself to, I had a quota of how many times during a day I'm going to say hi to somebody, how many times I'm going to ask a question. And I just force myself to get out of that a little bit at a time. Just like if you were a smoker, for instance, you would just cut down a little bit at a time. You don't quit immediately. But anyway, it just took me time. But it's been real big help because I've been a speaking coach for a long time. And the number one thing that people tell me that they struggle with is being uncomfortable on stage. And so I got you. I understand that because I've had that same problem.
And that really helps. Now your TED Talk, I want to talk to you a little bit about your coaching, but I want to talk to you about your TED Talk.
Sure.
Can you tell us a little bit about the journey to how you came up with your TED Talk, what the motivation you had for it, how you developed it, all the way through the start of it to the moment you stepped on the stage?
Sure. Sure. No, it was an interesting thing. Now, I didn't set out to be a speaker. I did not. I worked in TV for 32 years, and in those 32 years, what I would do is I would help you get up and deliver your message. So I'd go into a car dealership, or I'd go into a barber shop, and I would work with them, and I would help them develop their message and then deliver right, and I understood what right looks like. I understood what they needed to do. And then I got out of TV, and I was working in a healthcare organization, and they do a lot of conferences. And so in these conferences, they have people get up and speak, but a lot of times they were nurses or doctors or whatever, and they're subject matter experts, but they're not comfortable in front of an audience. And so they asked me, can you help these people get comfortable on stage? And I did that for a long time. So once I left that company, then I was asked to be a speaking coach for a group of companies. And all of a sudden I discovered that the way you get business is you go out and speak yourself. So I never set it as my goal that I want to be a great speaker. I set it as a goal as I want to help other people. So I was in the process of doing that, and a friend called from a college not too far from here, and he said, hey, we're doing a TEDx event, and we think you'd be great at it. And I said, great, I'd love to apply. And he said, yeah, well, actually, you've got like 48 hours to get your application, your synopsis of what you're going to talk about, and you have to do it on a video. And, I've got video capabilities here in my house, so I can do that. But anyway, so what was in front of me at the moment was how often I was talking to people about being authentic. If I worked with you, Glenn, I would want you to be more and more like yourself and not pretending to be somebody that we're not. And that authenticity was something at the moment I was really focused on. And so that's what I suggested that I do. And then I had a little time to develop it. Well,
a little time, 48 hours for most
48
people,
hours to get
yeah.
something. I mean, you put together a proposal and then you go, oh my gosh, now I have to actually follow through.
48 hours is not enough time.
So, but then I had months to work on it, and I practiced like crazy, and I got friends together, and I would deliver it to them. I worked really hard to be really good at this, and wrote the script, and I got other people to look at the script. A TEDx talk is, in my world, a huge thing, and so I wasn't going to be casual about it. I do a lot of casual engagements, and I'm fine with that. But this I took very seriously.
And I think the audience likes the idea, and I like the idea that you just said this is something that you have to take seriously, because you're going on a platform that's going to keep you out there for 10, 15, 20 years.
Right.
So your message is always going to come back. So, a guy was telling me that he had, his story was that his stadium he went to speak at the TED Talk was ready for 55,000 people, of which only 5 people showed.
Oh my God!
5 seats taking 55,000.
Yeah.
Well, he was ready to quit. In fact, he said, "I'm not going to do this. It's wasting my time." I said, "You're really forgetting, or you did forget. This is a big deal. There's not so much people in front. It's a big deal." So I'm glad you brought that out. But I did have a question for you from something you said earlier on, and I'm sure they probably call it WEAR TV3. Is that right? WEAR.
WEAR. Yeah, we don't actually say WEAR. We say WEAR.
Okay. How did that prepare you for this? How did that help prepare you for the authenticity part of your work?
The authenticity is it doesn't necessarily. TV is all about putting on airs, about being fake, about not being yourself. Glenn, I've worked with a lot of attorneys. I've worked with a lot of people who get elected. They're trying to get elected. And there's an awful lot of specialties where being truthful is not the first thing that you would think of. But something really happens when you are truthful. When in a world of fake, when everything is fake, when we've got fake hair and fake nails and fake tans and fake cars and fake purses, then it's all of a sudden when you stand up and you're just really real, man, does that stand out. It's such a breath of fresh air. And people are they're immediately drawn to you because you're real. And, that's about what I'm saying there is you have to talk about the times that you've failed. You have to talk about the times that you've come up short, that you didn't make it. Steve Jobs was offered a chance to come and speak at a college, and it was the college students themselves that recruited him to come and talk and made it all happen. And when he was done, the college students, one of them said, we expected him to come here and talk about his successes, about how he got rich and famous, and he didn't. All he talked about was his failures. And I say, well, that's probably a better leader, somebody that gets up and says, hey, I've fallen short, I've struggled. And you talk about we connect as people with others when we share our weaknesses.
I believe we're pretty close to starting off your TED Talk with the question, have you ever felt like a fraud?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Why did you go for the heart like that?
Well, I always go for the heart.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I think that if every speech, you need to get the emotion right. If I can get the emotion right, even when you're not talking about something as important as authenticity as a leader, but if you can find the emotion, then that's when people, if you talk about logic, people will understand you, but they won't necessarily change. But if you talk about the emotion of it, then you have a chance that they're really going to absorb that and change what they do because of it. They're in everything. We have to find where the emotional component of it is. So yeah, I went right from the beginning. You ever feel like a fraud? I do. And then I talked about me being a fraud for a good 6 minutes in my talk.
Yeah, and I found that interesting that we lay out you're laying out the idea that being a fraud or faking it till you make it doesn't really work.
Mm-hmm.
Because you feel like a fraud. But when you're maybe having to deliver, going into the leadership realm, you're having to deliver a message because you're paid to deliver that message,
right?
That you don't really believe in, but you're supposed to deliver that message. Like we're having cutbacks and you're supposed to deliver that message like you're working for that, because you are working for that company.
Right.
And you're supposed to deliver that message with conviction and authority. How do you coach people to get around or work with that?
Well, I would say that if your higher ups are telling you to say something that's not true, you need to move on.
Right.
Because
but if they're telling you something that's true in fact, but you don't personally get behind it.
Right. But if you're delivering the message, you want to get to that emotional moment. You want to say, hey, this is tough. This is tough for me. It's going to be tough for all of us. Listen, I love these people and I have to let them go. And I don't want that to happen. This is the reality of where we are, but it's not, nobody's happy about this. We're all really unhappy. And if I had some other way I could do this, I would do this because I can't stand this layoff.
So your advice really is pretty strong, I think, and see if you coach me in the right way.
Yeah.
My feelings. I have to be able to let my feelings stand out there.
Exactly. That's exactly it. We want you to show up as a leader that fully realized. So we want you to be a good leader and make good judgments and have good people skills and also have some vulnerability to you. That if you talk about these things, gosh, I laid awake all night worrying about this. See, because that's the thing is that we connect with people when they are similar to us, and we don't connect to people that we don't share similarities with. And if I were, so I'm thinking as I'm standing in the audience there, I'm thinking, well, if I had to lay people off, I would be heartbroken. I would be crying myself to sleep. Well, when the leader says that, when the leader says, look, this breaks my heart, this is tough, then we go, yeah, that's the way I would feel. And then you're connected. The problem with faking it until you make it is that it pulls people apart. It pulls people away from you and not to you. And in some careers, Faking it until you make it can actually be horrific.
Very
I work a lot in healthcare. I work with a lot of healthcare leaders. And if you make it so that in our organization, you don't make a mistake ever, or if you do make a mistake, you better go in there and cover it up really quickly, then guess what? That's what's going to happen. And you're not going to realize there was a mistake until it's too late. We have to be able to own that mistake. Here's what happened. But you can't do that if your leader's saying, you know what, in our world, we just need perfect, perfect, perfect.
That's okay. The reason why that sits home, I think, with a lot of people is what you're saying is make a mistake, it's got to be out there. Feel a certain way, it's got to be out there.
Yeah.
Okay. I want to ask, go ahead.
Now, let me give you the corollary. The flip side of this is that the military, our American military, has a different thing. They have an after action review.
Right.
And that AAR, in the AAR, what they do is they go and they have, they fly in, they land the helicopters, they rescue people, they pull them out, and then they sit down and they say, what happened? How did it go? What did we do well? What did we struggle with? What did we not know going in there? And this is very important. What it is absent of is blame and shame. And you think about it, how often in our leadership lives, it's blame and shame. Well, we didn't sell as many as we thought we would. Well, you know what?
Billy's fault. Yeah.
You point at somebody and you make them feel awful and they go home crying. But the military, what they're saying is, this is not about blame and shame at all. But if we can figure out that, hey, when the helicopter landed, it kicked up a lot of dust and then we couldn't see where we were. That's something we can fix. As long as we admit to it and then talk about it in the absence of blame and shame. If we're faking it until we make it, if we're being a fraud, then we tell everybody non-verbally, don't make mistakes. And if you do, cover them up.
Okay. You kind of took away my next question because you kind of said, if I can remember your exact words, which I can't, but you're saying that even though a mistake has happened,
right,
there's the blame game can't be in there.
Right, exactly. You can't. So what the great leaders do, and I've seen them, is they come in. Here's my friend Bob Murphy, who's just a fantastic leader. He ran a hospital, big hospital system, and when they onboarded new people, he always wanted to be there. When they got new people in the organization, and he'll stand up and say something like, "Hey, look at that! That's that form you have to fill out, the 1046." He says, "If you don't know how to figure that out, don't worry about it. I didn't know. I was running this hospital for 4 years, and I didn't know how to fill that out. And I want you to know that it's okay here to not know how something works." Now, what I did was Cheryl from accounting sat down with me, and she helped me to figure that out. And we have people here for that. So all you have to do is say, "Hey, I don't understand this." Raise your hand, and then somebody's going to jump in and help you out. But don't think you have to know everything. Just raise your hand. And so by him admitting that he had these flaws, then other people go, "Well, gosh, at least I'm not as, clueless as Bob is." And so you feel like, "Oh, okay, I can relax and I can ask questions." And in the healthcare system, man, you have got to get it right. And that means sometimes saying, "I don't know."
Yeah, and that's being authentic when we don't know. I want you to tell me, what is an authentic speaking? And I'd like for you to talk about it from two perspectives, from the people you coach to be speakers and from the leader who has to be authentic in his delivery of his message to his organization. What is authentic speaking?
Authentic speaking is telling the truth, but it's more than that. It's willingness to share your flaws and not just your successes. There is a tendency in leadership to want to go up perfect $800 suit and the perfect tie and the chemically whitened smile and the sports car and the driveway, all that stuff, and you want to pretend that you are perfect. The problem is that your people know that you're not perfect, and so they say, "Oh, That's what this place is about. This place is about pretending that we're perfect when we're really not. And so then they think, well, we've kind of criminalized making mistakes. We're either perfect or we pretend to be perfect. And if you make a mistake, bury that quick because nobody wants to know. When you're authentic and you say, you know, in the TED Talk, you'll see, if you watch mine, that I made a really big error, mathematical error when I was a new leader. And it was really, it could have sunk the whole ship. And by admitting it and talking about my problems with math, and I have serious problems with math, then everybody said, oh, okay, well, we'll work just like that after action review. We can figure this out. And they all understood. If I pretended, though, I could have messed up the whole thing. People might have gotten the idea that I'm not as smart as I seem like I am, but also they might say, I'm not sure that I trust this guy. And trust is a necessary component for connection. You don't connect with people that you don't trust. And the way that you connect with people is you build it through those moments of saying, I don't know, or this is something I've never been good at, or I remember a time when I was your age when I made this big mistake. And those are moments where people go, okay, well, I feel like I'm connecting with this person because they share the same weaknesses that I do. Or maybe we share different weaknesses, but he's making it okay for us. When you're leading a team, you just can't pretend to be perfect. Second part of your question there, Glenn, is you got to get up and you got to talk about your own shortcomings. And the more you do that, the more people will connect with you. And when you're connected, then you have a chance of getting some real work done. We go in and we say, we want you to change. We want you to be comfortable being uncomfortable. We want you to get outside of your comfort zone. We want you to, take risks. And then we say, but hey, don't ever make a mistake, because around here, we don't believe in mistakes. And that's a contradiction. That's never going to work. We have to decide that it's going to be okay, because you're going to make mistakes. Mm-hmm. Guess what? You're making mistakes. Your team's making mistakes. Everybody's making mistakes right now. But it is the healthy, mature organization that says it's okay. We'll talk about this. We'll do the military after action review, and then we're gonna learn from it and move on. Be better tomorrow. But you can't fix something if you won't talk about it.
You brought a question to mind. Difference between authority and being authentic.
No, that's a really good question. I believe that there was a time when businesses were authoritarian, and it was a top-down view. You had the CEO or the GM or whoever it might be at the top, and then they had vice presidents and so far, and down. And then what we expected of our employees is, I'm going to tell you what to do, and you do it. I'll say jump, and you'll say how high. Okay, that model, that business model, I hate to tell you, it's gone. That doesn't work anymore. So now, in order to get people to do things, what we have to do is we have to inspire and influence. And inspire and influence is harder, but the difference is that all of your people bring their whole selves to the table. And that is so cool when you bring your whole selves to the table. Because if I tell you, I want you to jump, and you say how high, then you're not making decisions. You're not bringing your whole, you don't feel safe enough to say, hey, Daniel, have you thought about this? Or maybe this isn't going to work out the way that you want. So that what we're looking for now is very few companies, even the military, isn't that top-down commanding, I'm going to tell you what to do and you just do it. Now we expect to be able to influence people. And a lot of times the people that we need to influence aren't even in our direct line of sight. We in the healthcare system, for instance, in order to get tongue depressors, you have to work through 3 different departments and get 6 people to sign off on something. So if you're not good at inspiration and influence, you're not going to fare very well, because on the rare occasions that anybody say, just do it because I told you to.
side question that you just made me think of. Why did the military capture this and use this more than the private sector? Why is it so? I mean, I remember Colin Powell sharing a story that just let me know, even though he was the very top military that you can be.
Yeah.
When Norman Schwarzkopf said, hey, that's not going to work, he said, okay, Norman, you got it. We'll do it this way.
Yeah. Yeah.
Why did the military catch on before we did?
It's just supposition on my part. But I have to tell you that imagine what the military does. The military, especially during times of war, is they grab young men off of farms, and one day they're herding cattle or they're milking cows or whatever, and then 3 months later we expect them to be driving a tank into the teeth of the Nazi blitzkrieg.
Right.
And so they have to understand leadership in a way that we don't. And when you say we, Glenn, I don't know your background that much, but in many cases, we're in small businesses, and the person who became the leader did it like this, because this is the way TV was, is that just be like, hey, Glenn, Mark quit. And you go, oh my gosh, that's got to be awful. I go, no, it's fine. You're going to be the leader. Now, do you get a day of training? Nope. Do you get a book? Nope. Do you go away to a conference to learn anything? Nope. You're a leader. And so you just lead the way that you think you should lead. But in the military, you understand that in order to get those men on the tanks, we got to work really hard. And I don't know the background of it, but I believe that all of us could go to the military and say, tell us how you do these things. And there's a great deal to learn that we just don't know.
We have it, but we just don't really get to it.
Right.
Now, it took me a little while. In fact, I didn't really connect it until just a few minutes ago on something that you said, which is the power of these podcasts. You said engaging the disengaged.
Right.
You're saying, and coach me again if I'm wrong here, you're saying be who you are, be the authentic self, so you can engage the disengaged and give them permission to be their authentic self.
Yeah, exactly.
Am I reading that right?
Yeah. The disengaged worker is the penultimate problem that American workers have. I mean, we've got something like 70% of American workers, I think it's 67% of American workers are actively disengaged. They don't want to be there. They're not excited. They don't like it, period. And so very few of us are showing up and saying, oh, goody, I get to make these widgets today. And so we have to get them beyond that if we can engage the disengaged worker. But I think that the problem starts when we hire, because I think that you get excited. You didn't take the job because you hate it. You took the job because you have great hopes for it. And then you show up and your first encounter with your leader, he or she is inauthentic. They're pretending to be something they're not, and they're making it clear that it's going to be just like every other organization you've ever worked for. But if you stop instead, if you started working for me and I said, Glenn, let me tell you some of the times I came short. Let me tell you about some of the times that I've made big mistakes. Let me tell you about some of the times where somebody else had to jump in and save me from making a horrendous problem. So that if we can engage the disengaged workers, we will have added billions to the economy.
To the economy, to productivity. And that was a statement. I put it in here because I believe that when you listen to someone's TED Talk, it should be a moment where you say, oh, wait a minute, pause, let me write that down.
Yeah.
And when you brought this point up, when we share our setbacks and disappointments, we give our team room to be human. And I want to add on there, give our team room to be human, to trust, and to like you.
Yeah. Isn't that powerful? Now think about that.
That is a very powerful statement where I just said, I got to write that down.
I hire somebody. I'm doing this right now. I have a lady that's going to work for me. She's 20 years as an educator. She is smart. She's determined. She's been in the Navy. And if I do it wrong, she's just going to give me compliance. And you know what compliance is worth? Not that much. But if I inspire her, and if I involve her, and if I get her fully and completely committed to the process, man, she's going to be unstoppable. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. But I have to be able to talk about my own flaws for her to feel like oh, we're in an
It's
organization
okay.
where that's going to be okay.
It's okay. It's okay. A workforce who is afraid of making mistakes still make mistakes.
Oh, absolutely.
What a powerful statement that was. Again, wait a minute. Pause. Let me write that down.
Yeah. You got to see it, especially in healthcare, man. I tell you what, you know that for every time they do a surgery, there's something that wasn't perfect.
Yeah.
Every time that somebody gets, their knees rebuilt or something, they're not. But what happens at that moment defines the maturity and the health of that organization. Because if you turn around and you say, you made a mistake and they fire you, well, we're still going to make mistakes. But you know what? Here's the thing, is that when we cover up that mistake, that's when the problem happens. Making the mistake isn't the problem. It's when we cover it up. And in healthcare, if you bury mistakes, you bury actual people. So it's very, very serious.
When you make a mistake and you fire that person, you just fired the person who knows the most about that mistake and how to prevent it the next time.
Right. That's a really good point. I mean, you just paid a lot of money for them to get a valuable lesson. And now if they can share that lesson with others, you imagine that after action review, in the military, the helicopter came down, it kicked up dust. The dust interfered with our ability to know where we are. And okay, so if we spend a few minutes talking about that, we can prevent that from happening, not just next time, but forever.
All times.
For all times. And
yes.
I'm a big fan, Glenn, of the minor incremental improvements over time. Mm-hmm. So if you and I are working on a project, we have a problem, we go, oh, we can fix that. And then we have something new that we can do. That's great. But you do that day after day, week after week, year after year, decade after decade with all of your people. And you get so incredibly good at doing this stuff.
Wow. That takes me back to another one of these write down moments. Minor improvements.
Minor incremental improvements.
Minor incremental improvements. I think it was Brian Tracy, Bob Proctor talks about just 2% a month. Where would you be at the end of the year?
Right.
You're saying every day a minor incremental improvement.
Well, we don't know. But I mean, the reality is that success comes with three different things. And that is you have to start where you are with what you've got.
Right.
Okay. A lot of people say, well, wait until I get that, or wait until you start where you are with what you got. And then next you make incremental improvements over time. Now I'm a runner and I haven't done it in a while, but when you go out to run the first time, you don't run a marathon. You run to the end of the driveway.
Right.
And 2 days later you run, to the end of the street. And it takes a very long time, but you're comfortable with that incremental improvement, because that incremental improvement is what gets you there. Understand that in Toyota, in Japan, that they'll have people out in the parking lot. The cars have been built and they're ready to ship. But some of the guys will go out there and they'll readjust some of the windshield wipers at the last minute because they just want that incremental improvement. It was just that much better. And then, of course, the third rule of success, you start with what you've got, where you are with what you've got. You make minor incremental improvements, and then you persist. You just keep doing it, keep doing it. And if you get 1% better, and 1% better, and 1% better in a year, you've got 300% better.
Exactly. That's so well said. Now, is that covered in your book, Nailed It, or is Nailed It used for a different area?
No, Nailed It is about a really good guide for how to give a good speech.
Okay,
So,
cool.
And
tell us about that. Tell us about Nailed It, and just give us maybe highlights of it.
Of the speaking
of the book.
Okay, well, first we have to find our passion. Given the choice, when they called me about the TEDx talk, I wanted to do something I was very passionate about, because getting there, it takes a long time. And then I'm going to be known about this TEDx talk for decades. Right. And so find something you're passionate about. I could have given a speech about something else, and I would not have been passionate about it. What matters? Watch TEDx talks. And if you find somebody that is just fired up about that subject.
Let me say this. I'm going to interrupt you because I'm going to put it back up here. They need to watch your TEDx talk, because I noticed throughout your talk, you slowly built into it where I'm with you and my passion is increasing, and I'm all of a sudden saying, this authentic thing, this is where it's got to be. I got to deliver this in my podcast. I got to deliver this to my team. Every book we publish, we got to make sure it's, go to yours. That's why I put it back up there. Go to your podcast and watch how authenticity and passion comes into play. I did mean to interrupt you, but go ahead with your thought about nailed it.
Start with something that you're very passionate about. It just makes all the difference in the world. When you watch TEDx talk and you find somebody that's just fired up about the subject, oh my gosh, you get that energy from them. And that's, so given the choice, always give a speech about something that find the emotion in everything. If you're talking about health insurance or life insurance, or if you're talking about cars, what's the emotional moment about buying a new car? Well, it's that time when, your mom, she didn't show up and she was supposed to. And you drive to her house and you find out that she's car's broken down on the way between. And you're like, oh, we got to get you a new car. We can't have you, a 78-year-old woman out here stuck on the side of the road. That's an emotional moment. We have to find that emotion. We need to make very clear. I like to tell people, you need to write your billboard. And what I mean by that is, when I was in TV, I made a lot of commercials. I mean, thousands of commercials. But I had it made when somebody walked in the door and they'd already put up a billboard, because that requires such discipline to communicate what you need to communicate in 7 to 10 words. So what is your 7 to 10 word headline? What is the headline? And if you can make that into a very short piece, then everything else fits in under that. Many people come in as I'm helping them build their speech, and they've just got too much stuff. And it's just some of this is over here and some of this is over there. And you're never going to do it unless you streamline that. And you streamline that by starting with a 7 to 10 word headline. Tell stories. There's never been a time where you will fail because you told stories. Stories are the way that we understand the world. Literally, since the beginning of humanity, we have told and understood the world through stories. We have to be able to tell stories. Somebody wants to talk about real estate. Well, we got to talk about real estate in terms of real people and how that affects the real people. It's never a bunch of numbers. Even if I were an accountant and I was sharing with you what our organization is doing, I would say, now look here in October. You know what happened there? That's when Janice decided she was going to do this other thing. And and I'll tell a Janice story at that point. We have to tell stories.
That one fits so well for the executive in the C boardroom.
Right.
Tell a story about honesty. Tell a story about when you failed, when you had a setback. Tell stories.
Tell a story about anything. The very best speakers literally they have in their pockets hundreds of stories. And so whatever they need to talk about, they're going to tell a story about that. The next point I would tell you is leave space. The problem that we have is that people get up and they talk for 45 minutes and they never take a pause. Is that no? You? I don't see that in you. But the less skilled you are, the more likely it is that you're going to just jam it all together, and you may along the way have a really important point. You may have a point where I'm going to get teary-eyed. You may have a story that I laugh at. But if you don't take the pause, they say music isn't in the notes. Music is what happens between the notes. And if you tell me a story and your grandmother had cancer and did this and that, give me a chance to feel it. And you have to take pauses.
See, I can raise my hand because I know early on, I thought I had to talk you to death. Until one day I connected, and this is where the power of what you're saying is so true. And I'm just saying this to share this with everybody because what you're saying is true. And know that it's got to be worth it. Because one day I realized, as a music major in college, wait a minute. What did the greatest, in my mind, the greatest composer ever do? Beethoven.
Yeah.
When he wrote his Ninth Symphony.
Yeah,
energetic. There's a lot of things going on in fourth movement all the time, but there's spaces where there's nothing going on.
Yeah.
Nothing moving.
Well, I could say, like, let's say that my whole speech is based on this thought. What got you here isn't going to get you there. I don't know if that's a good point or not a good point, but we'll pretend that was my whole speech is based on that. What got you here isn't going to get you there. Now, if I say to you, well, Glenn, I was talking to my wife the other day, and as we were driving across the new bridge, and I looked at her and I said, what got you here isn't going to get you there. And then we went ahead and we got to this restaurant. Well, I butchered that. I made a good point, but the way I delivered it, it probably didn't land.
Yeah.
But instead, if I say, you know what? When Janice came in, she said something that I think is just a genius. And she said, Daniel, what got us here isn't going to get us to the next level. What got us here was all of our childish enthusiasm, all of our excitement about being a new business. That's what got us here. But if we're going to get to the next level, we have to mature and we have to do some things differently. Well, that we have enough buildup and pauses, and we gave it some importance.
It shows two things in my mind. A great story doesn't have to be a long story.
No, it doesn't.
Okay. A great story only has to allow you to make it yours. And if you don't give pauses and space, people can't make it theirs.
So while we're here, even though I like to talk about emotion, I like for it to be emotional, you have to still have statistics, at least a couple in everything. I worked with a nurse up in Nashville, Tennessee, and she was fantastic. And she delivered this message, and it was a lot of statistics all the way through it. But I kind of got down and I said, well, but Karen, is this your opinion? And she goes, no, it's based on scientific evidence. I said, okay, why don't you share with us next time you do deliver this, share, Harvard research shows that, or Emory Riddle University shows that, because we need to know you're not just making it up, that it's based in actual facts. So find statistics. As I said, uncover the emotion. If I tell you 300,000 people die of breast cancer, it's a statistic. But if I say my mom struggled, and in her last days with breast cancer, now you're going to feel it. Now it makes it real. So,
because you're being authentic and feeling it yourself. The reason why I wanted to get to this book a little bit
yes, sir,
is because it is a great book for anybody, whether you plan on giving a TED talk or not. It's a great book for that. But I think it's a great book that leaders should give their next folks. So when they have a meeting with their team, they know how to present it better.
Yeah.
They know how to, if he's got to make a speech in front of the board of directors, you know how to make that better. That's a great book for that. And you also have something else, another resource, the 7-step guide for public speaking.
Right. So that's like a further outgrowth of the Nailed It book. And 7-step guide, I just try to make it easy. Now, if you do a TED Talk, and I hope you do, that's a great opportunity. You have 17 minutes.
Oh, it went down. It used to be 18. Okay.
Well, maybe it's 18. But they'll give you even shorter time. Some people do it in 10.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. In order to be good at that, you have to get rid of everything. It has to be so streamlined to make it fit in that amount of time. Mm-hmm. And they'll literally take you off stage if you run over. So that discipline is incredible. But TED Talk's a great thing for most people, for most businesses. It ends up being a calling card. People say, Daniel Pennington's written this book and written that book, and he's done a TEDx talk, and it ends up giving you a great deal of credibility in your field. I don't know, I haven't gotten rich from it, but
no,
but it's okay. It's all good.
It is a great opportunity. I know, like you, I use mine to let people know that I do this. It wasn't to get rich off it, really. It was to help me get more business. I got to be aware of your time here, so let me just ask you, what questions should I have asked you that I didn't?
Well, you and I probably could talk about what didn't go well during my TED Talk. So I watched it the other night, and I watched it again this morning, and it's not terrible. But what you don't realize, what you don't see, is that we had audio problems all the way through it. We had when I got on stage, first thing that happened was it was a tremendous squelch that hurt everybody's ears, and they turned it all off. And then while I'm talking in the room, the audio that was going out to the audience would stop and start, and then we actually had a fire alarm go off. And I was so unnerved by all of that that I felt like I didn't do my best. And then they said, well, we'll give you another chance at it when we wrap up everybody else. So I'd done the first one. You can come back at the end and deliver it the second time. No. And by then, everybody had cleared out of the stadium. There was nobody there. It was my wife and one of my friends, and we were all exhausted. And I didn't deliver a great one there either.
Yeah.
So
that's worth the talk, because I wish we had the time, because I'd like to know how you overcame that.
Well, I don't know that I did, or I don't know that I did it well. If you speak a lot, and you probably know this, Glenn, you're going to have all of those problems. You're going to have fire alarms go off. You're going to have the electricity go off. You're going to have people drop a plate of dishes in front of you. You're going to have somebody ask you stupid questions or yell partway through. It's going to happen. So
it does. Absolutely does happen. Absolutely. Here's also what I want to know from you.
Yes, sir.
How do people, and sometimes TEDx people are not so good at this answer, how do people get a hold of you? What do you offer them? And how do you make their lives better?
Well, thank you so much for that. Yeah, TEDx, they will tell you, you don't use it as a promotional tool. You don't get up and sell anything. And I don't. I certainly did not get up to sell anything. And so you don't have that follow-up. What's the next level? I am a speaking coach in Pensacola, Florida, although I'm doing an awful lot through Zoom these days, and I'm happy to do that. My website is called speaker-training.org, speaker-training.org.
That will be in the description.
In the description. I would love to chat with you. Don't think you can't just call me up or pick up the phone or send me a text message or whatever. I'm eager to talk to you. It doesn't cost anything for you to talk to me, and we'll work out whether or not I'm the right fit for you. And I give away more than I charge for. So a lot of times I'm just talking to people and helping them get to the next level in their company. 80% of your time as a leader, you are speaking. 80% of it. And if you're not good as a speaker, you're not going to be a great leader. And it's the average person who's a leader and can be a really good speaker. They make almost 50% more than the person next to them.
Well, sure. Give us that website again.
It is www.speaker-training.org.
All righty. I got to thank you very much for your time, the effort, your energy you put into this. It's been a fantastic opportunity to learn from you. You and I need a part 2, though.
Yeah, anytime.
We need a part 2.
I would talk about this anytime, but we can do something at the next level if you want to. And
I think we should. I really think we should. Daniel, thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for connecting with us here at Touchstone Publishers. Please join our group Essential Leadership Skills and share your leadership knowledge with us all.